Let's open Stock, please, and choose React project. There are some pre-created templates in here, but let's create our own file where we're gonna write our class, component, and function component. So I'm going to name this one student.jsx, and in here, let's import React and component from React library. And now comes our class. I'm gonna name it student. So let's do class student extends react.component. And in here, I'm gonna have a constructor where it's gonna take in a props. Prop stands for property. And we're gonna pass it on to super, and we pass in props as well. And then let's have a render method where we're going to return a h1 tag, and I'm gonna say student. It's gonna display student, and it's gonna show this dot props dot name, and what it does is basically this dot props dot names is referred to the props that we passed in line 4 and 5, and then finally we'll export default student. Okay, and then let's go to index.tsx, and let's import student class from the student.jsx file that we created recently. Once it's done, let's go down to the render method here, and let's render our student class, that class component that we created. Okay, so as you can see, it's showing student, but it's not showing anything else. Let's go back to student.jsx. So as you can see, it says students here, but we're missing the props.name. So let's pass in a prop. So let's say name equals, I'm gonna give it a value of Kim, and right away you see that the value of the props is showing. All right, so that's props. Now let's go ahead and continue to create another function component, and we're gonna explore more from here. Okay, so I'm gonna have a function called student ID, where I'm going to also take in props object for this function component. For the return, same thing. We are going to have the return function, where inside this I'm going to have, let's say, a h2 tag, where I'm going to return a line, say student, and then I'm going to use the props here. So I'm going to use props.name, let's say has student ID of, and then let's use another prop, so props.id. So basically these props are what we are going to define in our class component up top. So let's clarify that. So inside this, inside the class component, I'm gonna call the student ID function component, and I'm gonna clarify that the props name is going to be whatever that we're gonna pass in later as property of the class component. So this dot props dot name is going to be passed to name, and this dot props dot ID is going to be passed to ID. So let's go back to the index.tsx, and it'll be more clear. Let's pass in some information. Okay, so in here you are seeing that it's showing Kim, as we pass Kim for the prop name, but we don't see an ID yet. So let's create an ID. So for ID, I'm putting it 1 2 3 4, and as you can see, it's showing right away.